I speak 9 languages, said son of black cleaning lady. Arab millionaire laughed, but got shocked. The words hung in the wide glass office like a dare. The city stretched below in silver and stone, honking taxis and small dots that were people. The big windows made the room feel like the edge of a cliff. A slow hum from air vents, the soft tick of a gold clock, the faint smell of lemon cleaner, everything felt rich and cold. A boy stood near the door with a beaten-up backpack and a steady gaze that did not match his age. He was 14. His name was David Johnson. Beside him, his mother, Grace, held a blue cleaning bucket. Her fingers were red from bleach. Her breath came short and tight, like it did when she was worried. Across the room, a man leaned back in a deep leather chair. The chair looked like it cost as much as a small car. He wore a dark suit that fit him like it was sewn on his skin. He had a face that cameras liked and eyes that could turn warm or sharp in a second. He was Hassan al-Mansouri. People called him a self-made billionaire. In this office he was the weather. When he smiled, employees felt safe. When he frowned, even the flowers looked afraid. Right now he laughed. It was a loud, clean laugh that bounced off marble and glass. He laughed like he was watching a little play made just to amuse him. You speak 9 languages? Hassan said, still grinning, his voice rolling low. Kid, you can barely speak English. Grace flinched like someone had dropped a pan in the kitchen. David, apologize, she whispered, eyes on the floor. Please. We need this job. David did not look away from Hassan. His face burned, but his eyes were steady. He stood up a little taller, which was not very tall, but it made him look older. He did not look at his mom because he did not want to see fear. He knew what was at stake. He did not want his mother to clean someone else's dirt just to feed him. He also did not want to be small. He thought of long afternoons in the Bronx library, of little white cards with book barcodes, of the click of a mouse and the warmth of a librarian's smile. He thought of pages and pages filled with letters from other lands that he had taught himself to hear. English, Spanish, French, German, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Italian, Portuguese, David said. He spoke each word clearly, like a key pressed on a piano. His voice did not shake. Hassan's smile paused for a small second, then came back, easier than before. That's cute, he said. I enjoy this kind of fantasy. It brightens my day. He spread his arms. Go on, boy wonder. Impress me. Grace swallowed hard. She hated this. She hated being in this huge office, with a man who liked making others feel small. She hated that she had brought her son because she could not find a sitter and thought, just this once, he could sit quietly in the corner. She hated that her life had made her careful. She had swallowed 1,000 small hurts to keep her job. But this was her boy. He was not a hurt she could swallow. David stepped forward one step. Sir, he said, do you speak Arabic? Hassan's eyes flicked, amused. Of course. It is my native language. David took a breath and let the words flow, smooth and exact, in classical Arabic. His mouth shaped the sounds like he had been born inside them. The words meant, if I wanted to tell you the truth, I would not raise my voice. I would choose my words carefully until they reached your heart. The room went very still. Hassan's face changed in a way no one in that office had seen. The small lines beside his eyes tightened, not with anger but with shock. This was not simple tourist Arabic. This was formal, full grammar, perfect pronunciation. It was the kind of speech people in old universities used. For debates, the kind spoken by poets and presenters on serious news. Where did you learn that? Hassan asked, the edge of his voice gone. It was the first time in a long time he had not sounded in control. At the public library, sir, David said. They have free language clubs. And there are online classes anyone can take. I go every day after school. I study at night. I like to learn. Hassan's laugh did not come back. He looked at Grace for the first time like he was seeing a person, not a job. Grace stood taller, still holding her bucket. Her face had a small, worried pride in it now, like a candle lit in a draft. Anybody can memorize a sentence, Hassan said after a moment, trying to climb back to the top of the hill. It doesn't mean you can speak. You are right, David said. That is why I brought these. He took off his backpack and set it on the edge of the expensive desk. He pulled out a clear file folder. The plastic was bent and cloudy. Inside were papers with stamps and signatures. David slid them across the desk. This is my certificate from an advanced youth linguistics program at the city library. These are proficiency tests from Columbia University's language outreach. And this is my certificate for a course in simultaneous translation. Hassan picked up the first document. His hand shook a little. The stamps were official. The names were real. The dates lined up. He looked for a trick and found none. He picked up the second and the third. The more he read, the quieter the room felt. Grace looked from the papers to her son to the man behind the desk. She had seen David study, yes. She had seen him come home late with his eyes lit up, talking about verbs and roots and alphabets. She had tried to listen after long shifts where her back hurt so bad she could not even sit down to eat. She had not realized how far he had gone. She felt proud and scared at the same time, like standing on a tall building with no railing and feeling the wind push. Hassan cleared his throat. Recordings, stamps, he said. This is impressive. But show me. He tapped his ear. Talk. David nodded. He lifted his tablet. He made a video call. The screen showed an office full of books. A woman with straight black hair answered. She smiled. Professor Lee, David said in smooth Mandarin, can you please say hello to Mr. Al-Mansouri? He wants to know if I can really do what I say I can do. The professor laughed kindly and replied in quick Mandarin, asking how David was and teasing him about always over-preparing for everything. David answered easily, switching tones the way a native would. They spoke for a full minute. Then the professor switched to English for Hassan. Mr. Al-Mansouri, David is the best youth student I have met in 15 years. He started at 11. He does not just memorize. He understands. He can switch registers. He listens. He respects the culture inside the language. That is rare. Hassan ended the call with a thumb that was not steady. He stared at the tablet, then at David, then at Grace. Something old in him, the boy who had arrived alone in a strange airport a long time ago, pushed against the man he had built over it like a wall. He did not like the feeling. It felt like a crack. Why languages? He asked, his voice slow now. You are 14. Why spend your days like this? Because I want to understand people, David said. When you speak to someone in their language, they stop seeing a stranger. They see a person. And because school got too easy after my mom lost her second job and we had to switch. So I made my own school in the library. Grace swallowed. She wanted to hold David's face in her hands and shout to everyone, look at my son. But this was not the place for shouting. It was a place for steady voices and proof. Hassan looked at his desk. He saw a stack of printouts from a call the day before. He heard in his head the stumbles he had brushed off as poor audio. He felt his stomach turn. You heard my call yesterday, he said. In Arabic. What did I do wrong? David stepped closer. He pointed to a word circled in red. You said mubashir to mean urgent, but you needed mustajil. Mubashir is like live broadcast or direct. It confused them. And you said Miraib instead of Muajal when you talked about moving dates. It made it sound like you were saying something was suspicious, not postponed. Hassan closed his eyes for a second. He had seen the investors' faces move in tiny ways during that call. He had told himself they were rude. He had told himself a lot of things these past years. David, Hassan said quietly, you may have saved a $50 million deal. He let out a breath he did not know he was holding. How else have you helped me without me knowing? David unzipped a side pocket of his backpack. He pulled out a neatly stapled report. The title was simple, Communication Errors Costing Al Mansouri Global. Under it, pages full of examples and fixes. David handed it to him. I read your press releases, your transcripts, your letters online, David said. All public. I found little mistakes. Wrong words in Arabic. Wrong tone in French. A too strong register in Japanese that sounded rude. Small things that lose trust. If you fix them, you will win more. You will also show respect. That is worth more than money. Hassan read. His eyes moved fast. His mouth pressed into a line. The report was clear. It was clean. It was not a child's work. It was the work of someone careful. It felt like standing in his own house and seeing all the crooked pictures he had never noticed before, and knowing why guests had looked away. He looked at Grace again. He saw the person, not the uniform. He saw tired hands that had held a house together and pushed a son toward light. He felt something in his chest crack more. Why did you bring this to me? He asked, voice hushed. This could make you enemies. This could hurt your mother's job. Because I heard you talk about people like me, David said, and his calm, kind voice changed. It grew hard like a stone at the bottom of a river. He reached into his bag one more time. He put a small recorder on the desk. He pressed play. Hassan's voice filled the room from last week. He heard his own words from the elevator, low and smooth and ugly. He had been complaining to his vice president about those black Americans, and how he preferred to hire people from back home or white schools for important roles. He had sounded bored while he said it. That shocked him. He had sounded like it was normal. Grace covered her mouth. It felt like a hand had hit her. David stood still, his jaw set. Hassan's face went white. How, he stopped. He knew exactly how. He remembered the elevator stop. He remembered thinking no one was there. He had not looked twice at the kid with a backpack in the far corner. New York is a one-party consent state, David said. I did not plan to catch that. I was just there. But once I had it, I had to decide what to do. I could let it go. Or I could use it to change things. Hassan looked at the city through the glass. Cars moved. People moved. Everything moved and he felt stuck. He was a man who made decisions fast. He liked winning. Now a child had checkmated him with facts, with proof, with his own voice. What do you want? He asked, looking at David, not at the recorder. David did not smile. He did not gloat. He laid his plan flat on the desk. I want you to choose, he said. You can act like nothing is wrong. This recording will go to reporters and lawyers. Or you can show that you learned something today. Promote my mom to facility supervisor. Pay her fair. Start a scholarship program for kids like me who want to study languages, business, code. Hire me as a junior language consultant. I will save you more than I cost. I will also help you build something better. You are 14, Hassan said, because his brain needed to push back at least a little. I am 14 and I speak 9 languages, David said, and he sounded tired, but not of the work. He was tired of proving he was a person. I have already saved you money. I have already fixed your words. I can keep doing that. Grace stood like a tree that had weathered storms. She did not speak. She let her son speak. It felt like watching a bird fly for the first time and knowing he would not fall. Hassan held the contract David handed him. It was neat. It had clauses that protected Grace and David. It gave the company room to set hours around school and set fair terms. It did not squeeze. It did not trick. He flipped pages and saw his own signature line at the end. "Why should I trust you not to send the recording anyway?" he asked. He needed to know. "Because I believe people can change," David said simply. "I believe second chances matter when someone really wants to do better. You will show it with actions. If you don't, I will show this to the world. I do not want to. I would rather win the right way." Hassan felt something else crack. He was good at business. He was not good at facing himself. He thought about his early days. He thought about standing in a corner store in Brooklyn without enough English to ask for change, sweating from shame and summer heat. He thought about a teacher who had pressed a note into his hand with a phone number for help with school. He thought about a church basement in the Bronx where a small group had taught him English for free. He had learned, too, because someone gave time and care. He had not thought about them in years. He picked up his pen slowly. It was heavy and gold and silly. He signed his name with a hand that shook and felt lighter when he finished. He looked up at Grace. "Do you accept?" he asked. "I accept," Grace said, voice steady. She did not cry, though tears pushed at the corners of her eyes. "On one condition. You will treat every cleaner with respect. Not just me." "Yes," Hassan said, because he meant it now and because the old way had fallen apart in his hands like dried bread. David reached into his bag and pulled out 2 more small recorders. He placed them on the desk and said in a calm voice, "For records. So no one can say this was a trick. You signed by choice. You agreed by choice. Now we all do the work." Hassan did something rare. He laughed, truly laughed. It made him look younger. "You are frightening," he said, but there was only admiration in it. "Not because of the recorder. Because you came ready. That is real power." "I'm not here to scare you," David said. "I'm here to build something useful." The deal in the room was not the kind he was used to. It was bigger. It felt like a door opening to a hallway he had never seen. Hassan leaned back, and for once, the chair felt too big. He stood up. "David," he said softly, holding the boy's gaze, "thank you for saving my business. More than that, thank you for saving me from myself." David's face finally showed a small smile. "You are welcome," he said. Hassan thought that was the end of surprises. It was not. David slid one more paper across the desk. It was a copy of a very old envelope, scanned at the library. The paper looked tired. The name on the front was one Hassan knew too well, his own. Under it was a line in neat handwriting, "Community Literacy Fund, approved." Attached to it was a letter from years ago, signed by a woman named Elaine Foster, coordinator at a community center on East 149th Street. David tapped the letter. "I found this when I researched you," he said. "Your first months in New York, you got a small grant for classes. The money came from a neighborhood fund made by a group of black parents and church teachers. 2 of them were building cleaners at night, like my mom. They passed a hat after meetings. They helped pay for you to learn English." Hassan read the letter 3 times. The ink swam a little. He felt tears push and he pressed his lips tight like he could hold them in. He remembered the lady with bright eyes who had helped him fill out a form because his hand had shaken too much. He remembered a man who had cracked jokes in a deep laugh and walked him to the subway. He had forgotten them in a pile of wins. He had thrown a part of himself away and then used money to cover the empty. "I forgot," he whispered. "I forgot who pulled me forward. He looked at Grace and at David. "I am sorry." Grace nodded. "Then start fresh," she said. "Start right." Hassan called in his vice president, Robert Chun. He handed him the signed contract. "This is new," Hassan said. "Set it up. Build the scholarship. Begin interviews for facility team promotions. We are changing how we hire." Robert looked surprised but only for a second. "Yes, sir," he said. His eyes flicked to David with interest. He had seen genius before, but not like this. That night, the city shone like a field of stars. Grace and David rode a quiet elevator down to the ground floor. Grace carried an empty bucket. Her hands shook from leftover fear and leftover relief. When they stepped onto the sidewalk, the air tasted like rain. David looked up at the tall building and then at his mother. He did not puff his chest. He did not strut. He just looked tired and glad and hungry. "We'll stop for pizza," Grace said, "because sometimes the best way to celebrate is cheese and bread and laughter at a small table." "Okay," David said softly. He felt older than he had in the morning. He also felt lighter, like he had set down a bag he had carried a long time. Weeks rolled by like slow trains. Papers were signed. Meetings were held. Things changed, not in a speech, but in a list of small, steady steps. Grace got a new badge with "supervisor" under her name. She got a fair schedule and a fair raise. It felt strange to sit in a meeting and have her opinion asked without anyone rolling their eyes. She did not need a suit to be listened to, but she bought one anyway, bright blue, because she liked how it made her feel. She still carried a spray bottle sometimes. She still helped when someone was sick or late. Supervising did not mean forgetting how to clean. David showed up 2 afternoons a week after school. He sat in a glass room that used to be empty and now had a whiteboard and a stack of dictionaries from all over the world. He looked at contracts and emails before they went out. He marked mistakes with a green pen because he liked that color more than red. He built a simple guide for staff, how to speak with respect in 10 languages. He kept it short, because he knew busy people do not read long things. He trained a small team, picked by skill, not by last name or golf buddies. He loved it. Hassan walked through his offices with new eyes. He saw where people smiled and where they went quiet. He heard words he had ignored before. He stopped and asked guards about their families and meant it, not just as a tool. He said sorry a lot at first. He meant that, too. He met with lawyers to update policies. He gave HR teeth. He told managers who rolled their eyes to fix their faces or find the door. A few people left. Many stayed and felt air come back into the room. Not everything was easy. Some investors liked the old Hassan better, the one who did not ask hard questions about fairness. He lost 2 deals because of it. He saw those checks slide away and felt the sting. Then a different kind of investor called. They had heard about the language team. They had heard about the scholarship program. They wanted to work with a man who could do math and morals at the same time. It balanced out in money. It did more than balance out in sleep. 6 months later, a group of teenagers sat in a circle at the Bronx Public Library. The carpet smelled like old books and lemon polish. A big sign hung on the wall, David Johnson Youth Talent Program, First Cohort. On a table lay laptops with stickers, notebooks with bright covers, pencils in jars. The sun fell through big windows and made friendly rectangles on the floor. Hassan sat at the table with them. He did not wear a suit. He wore a sweater and a smile that reached his eyes. He had lines in his face that looked softer than the ones in the office. He told the story of a boy who had come to his office with a backpack and told him a truth he did not want to hear. Around the table, heads leaned in. Some faces were shy. Some were bold. All were hungry for a door to open. "Is it true he blackmailed you?" asked Maria, a girl with big eyes and quick hands that never stopped moving when she talked. It is true he brought me evidence, Hassan said. It is also true it was the best thing that ever happened to me. He looked at David, who sat next to him, a teenager who had learned how to keep his shoulders from being always up by his ears. David smiled and shook his head like he thought that part was too big. What did he say in Arabic? Asked a boy named Carlos, already teaching himself code on a borrowed laptop, his fingers tapping even when he was thinking. He told me the truth in a kind way, Hassan said. And he showed me how to say it right. That is a trick you should learn, too. It is not enough to be right. You have to be kind, and you have to be clear. Grace stood at the back of the room, watching. She had on her blue suit. It still made her feel brave. Her heart felt like a house with all the lights on. Tell them about the letter, David told Hassan quietly. Hassan nodded and held up the old scanned paper. He told them about the community center that had once lifted him. He told them about Elaine Foster and the church basement and the man with the deep laugh. He told them about forgetting and then remembering. He did not cry. He did not mind if the kids saw his voice catch once. He wanted them to know rich men also had soft parts. What is the biggest thing you learned? Maria asked. That I was not self-made, Hassan said. No one is. We are made by hands that held us up when we were small, by rooms like this, by patient teachers, by parents who say no a lot and yes when it matters. David closed his laptop and joined the circle. If someone like me can do this with a library card, imagine what you can do with a scholarship and mentors who show up, he said. Not because they want to feel good. Because they know you have something to give the world. Weren't you scared? Carlos asked, looking at David like he was a superhero wearing a hoodie. Yes, David said. I was scared. I was scared my mom would lose her job. I was scared they would laugh at me. I was scared I would mess up a word and everyone would say, see, he was lying. But my mom taught me that the biggest failure is letting fear decide who you are. So I was scared and did it anyway. I also brought proof. Courage and evidence go together. They all laughed with him. The sound filled the room like warm light. At the office, the work was not just talk. A year from that first day, the company had a small team that checked cultural tone in every big message. They had interns from the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, paid, not, for experience. Grace ran a crew that felt like family. They still scrubbed. They also helped plan better schedules and lighter loads, because good ideas can come from any corner. On a winter afternoon, snow dusted the city. Hassan and David sat across a long table from a group of Japanese investors. The meeting had been tense. At first, the investors were older men. They did not like that a teenager sat at the table. But then David opened his mouth and spoke in clear, polite Japanese with gentle formality. He knew the right honorific, the right pause, the right way to say, it would be my honor, without sounding fake. He switched to English when needed to make sure everyone understood the same thing. He did not show off. He did not try to be cute. He was a bridge. The deal was $500 million. They signed. The oldest investor shook David's hand with both of his. He bowed a little deeper than he needed to. You showed respect, he said, and that was better than money. A reporter asked Hassan after, how does it feel to have a 15-year-old advisor? Hassan smiled. It feels like leadership, he said. It is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about making a room where smart people can help each other. And you, she asked David, what would you say to a kid watching this? David looked into the camera. His eyes were steady again, the way they were in that office on the day he spoke up. Do not let anyone decide your worth based on what they see when they don't really look, he said. Learn. Prepare. Be brave. Bring proof. And remember that you can build your own door if no one will open one. The reporter smiled. Grace stood off to the side and wiped her eyes, not because she was sad, but because she was full. That night, Hassan walked alone in his big office. The city glowed. He looked at the chair where he used to sit and feel like a king. He did not want that anymore. He wanted to feel like a good man. He thought of a boy who had said 9 words and changed his life. I speak 9 languages. He wrote those words on a piece of paper and taped it under his desk blotter, where only he could see. It reminded him to listen. He picked up his phone and called a number he had not dialed in years. A man answered, older now, voice still deep. Hello. Mr. Henderson? Hassan said, and his voice shook just a little. This is Hassan. From the class. A long time ago. You walked me to the subway on my first day. A pause, then a laugh. I remember, the man said. What took you so long? Too long, Hassan said. I am sorry. Thank you. I would like to help with your work now. I have a check to bring. And time. Time is worth more, Mr. Henderson said. Bring both. I will, Hassan said. And he did. There were still people who asked sharp questions. They said David was just a lucky story. They said Hassan changed for the cameras. They said the program would fade. But the library lights stayed on. The kids kept showing up. The guides kept getting better. The language team kept fixing small mistakes that made big differences. Grace kept walking the floor with kind eyes and a tight bun and a clipboard that had more than cleaning lists on it now. The biggest change was inside. Not in the statements or the signs. Inside Hassan, a part that had been hard and quiet became soft and loud. He stopped needing to win every room. He started needing to make every room fair. One afternoon, he asked David, what do you want next? College? Work? Both? David smiled. I want to keep building bridges, he said. Maybe I will write a book about making big business speak like a person. Maybe I will teach. Maybe I will start a company that does what we built here for 50 other companies. But I will also keep going to the library. That is where the magic is. A quiet room. A smart plan. Time. Hassan walked to the big window with David and looked down at the loud street that had looked small from up here. You know the funniest part, he said. What? You did not just save my company, Hassan said. You saved my soul. David laughed softly. My mom says a soul is a garden, he said. You water it or you let it dry. You started watering again. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city move. It did not care that they had changed. But the people inside it would feel it, here and there, like a sudden ease in a hard day, like being spoken to in your own language when you did not expect it. A year later, David stood on a small stage at the library. He held a microphone like a friend, not a weapon. The first 50 students in the program had certificates in their hands and hope in their bones. Grace sat in the front row, proud. Hassan sat next to her, softer around the eyes, happy to take up less space. David said, thank you to the people who built this place, who kept the lights on even when no one clapped for you. Thank you to the cleaners, the guards, the staff who make quiet rooms in a noisy world. Thank you to the teachers who show up, even when it is cold or hot or their own lives are heavy. We stand on your shoulders. He looked at the students and said, this is not the end. This is the start. Take what you learned. Share it. Pull someone else up. If you speak 9 languages one day or one language very well, use it to make people feel seen. That is the real gift. He looked at Hassan and smiled. And thank you to people who change. It is not easy. It is always worth it. They clapped until their hands hurt. Then they ate cake from a box and laughed. Grace put a slice in a napkin to bring home, because old habits are hard to break and some are good. On the way out, a little boy tugged David's sleeve. I only speak one language, he said shyly. Is that okay? David knelt to be eye level. It is more than okay, he said. You can learn another if you want. But first, use the one you have to say true things and kind things. That is the best start. The boy nodded like he had been given a secret. He ran back to his mom. David stood and looked up at the big banner with his name on it. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a worker in a garden. He liked that better. And if you walked past the tall glass office late one night months later, you might see a man at a desk reading a book about grammar with a yellow highlighter and a silly grin. You might see him get up and fill a cart with sandwiches and take it down to a floor where cleaners were working past midnight. You might hear him say, "Thank you," in Spanish or in French or in a language that stays the same even when the words change. Because sometimes the richest deal a man makes is not in dollars. It is when he chooses the right formula for a life. Not the one that adds up to a stack of money and a cold heart, but the one that adds up to people feeling seen, to children stepping into rooms with their backs straight, to a city where a boy with a backpack can walk into a marble office and speak 9 languages, and the person behind the desk finally hears him.